Hello and welcome to the session on the SAP Materials Management, overview of the SAP MM module as part of the training program that I conduct. So this session intends to provide a basic overview of the SAP Materials Management module and also a brief idea about the training program for the SAP MM conducted by me. Before you go to the actual presentation, let me start with a brief introduction about myself. My profile includes basically, I am a postgraduate in thermal engineering from IIT KGP. Since 2004, I've been into SAP in the area of functional consulting and also training. Over these years, I've been associated with the functional consulting in various SAP solutions that include SAP IS Utilities, SAP IS Retail, SAP FICA, Contract Account Receivable and Payable. In addition, classic modules, SAP Materials Management, and also Sales and Distribution. Over these years, apart from the consulting, I've been actively involved in conducting training programs on all these solutions and the modules. I have found SAP training is always very exciting, challenging, and very satisfying. Over these years, I've been able to conduct the training programs for participants more than approximately 4,000 plus. The training programs have been conducted in the classroom environment, corporate trainings, one-to-one individual training. Since 2012, I started providing training program, online training program in all these modules and the solutions. Basically, the training programs are designed to provide complete skill set for the configuration in the particular solution, matching with the contemporary requirement of the industry as per the desired role of the functional consultant. The training will provide basically an in-depth understanding about the functional customization of the module, business functions, business processes, integration, and also real-world scenarios and examples so that, learning becomes very purposeful and also it is oriented towards the project. The training programs are provided through good communication skills matched with the proper documentation, hands-on sessions on the system, starting from the scratch, so that, the participant will be able to get involved in the details of the configurations as per the business process requirements. We take an example of a real-world business entity, and for that, we will do the complete configuration, recording of the business processes, integration, and also reporting. So basically, this kind of training will help the participant to get the greater insight into the area of configuration, acquire the skills with the adequate practice on the system, and also by acquainting themselves with the documentation, will be prepared for taking part in the project and also contribute to the successful activities in the project management. So with this self-introduction, I would like to start with the actual training, actual presentation. Let me thank you in advance for the listening to the presentation and also for your patience. Let us start with process of understanding what is SAP Materials Management as a core component of SAP ERP system and how it contributes to overall functioning of the SAP logistics. As you know, SAP logistics has been broadly divided into three main modules: SAP sales and distribution, SAP materials management, and SAP production planning. On the whole, SAP itself is divided into three core modules: accounting, which is subdivided into financial accounting and controlling, logistics, and HR. So logistics basically represents a kind of a supply chain management solution for the businesses involving three core modules: MM, sales and distribution, and PP. Apart from this, we have additional modules also like plant maintenance, customer service, foreign trade, project systems. In a way, all these are related to the logistic module. But the core logistic part will be these three modules: SD, MM, and PP. All these three modules have two main important objects connected with them: plant and the material. Whether you are dealing with the sales and distribution or materials management or production, we have plant as the highest org unit in the logistic and material as a part of the business process. So we center around the material as a starting point, whether we are dealing with ESD, MM, or PP. From configuration perspective, actually MM can be thought of divided into two main areas: logistic general and core MM. Like if you happen to go to the SAP configuration environment, within the SAP MM, we can say there are broadly two areas: logistic general and materials management. Sometimes you call logistic general as the core MM, and MM is the materials management. Enterprise structure point of view, plant and division are defined in the logistic general. In the actual materials management module, we have the purchase organization and the storage location. So essentially, logistic general will contribute in terms of having certain basic settings which are related to material, not only from MM perspective, but also from sales and distribution and other modules. For very basic idea of creating a material master, it starts with the logistic general, where we maintain all the configuration settings for creating the material master. So from that perspective, you can say whether you are dealing with the material in sales and distribution or production planning or in MM, the basic journey will start with the material master creation with the basic settings that are configured in the logistic general. Now we are trying to understand the actual application module, materials management. From the configuration perspective, the entire MM module can be divided into these areas. Basically, MRP, consumption-based planning, purchasing as the main business process in SAP MM, external service management, basically external services procurement, inventory management, and physical inventory, the most important module of SAP MM, which is again linked to basically all the modules in logistics. And then we have valuation and account assignment, where we have an integration between the MM module and FI module. Logistics invoice verification is basically processing the invoices in MM, the vendor invoices, based on which invoice is posted into MM module. Thereby, it will transfer data to payable in the financial accounting. So this is from the configuration perspective in the MM module. From the initial data entry screen, basically SAP Easy Access, we have the MM module, logistics, and materials management. So we are going to look into each of them in detail. What are these various application modules within the materials management? Basically, materials management as the key component of the logistics will help the business to manage their procurement process and inventory activity. Now, let us say we have got a material requirement in any part of the business. It can be sales and distribution or production. Where is the origin of the material? That means if you speak from the production perspective, we require certain raw materials, or for the direct consumption, like office supplies, we need some material purchase to happen. Or let's say from trading perspective, the company is purchasing certain products and then selling to customers directly. So procurement will come into the picture. Procurement is basically ensuring all the materials that are required to be procured from the external suppliers are done through procurement process. It can be a physical material or basically procuring the external services. At any given point of time, inventory management will help us to locate the stock of the particular material in the plant and storage location, whether we have sufficient stock to meet our sales requirement, production requirement. So basically, inventory management is the most important constituent of the from the application perspective. The SAP module will ensure whatever raw materials are required for the production, or let's say direct consumption or sales perspective, are made available in the form of right quantity, right time, and the right cost. So basically, material management as a module is focusing on the procurement, where you are going to procure certain products, certain raw materials, or external services, which will add cost to the company. So basically, a liability comes into the picture. So you have to ensure that you are purchasing the right material, right quantity at the right time, so that you always have the optimum inventory at any given point of time, so that our money is not locked up in the huge inventory which is not consumed, or pessimistic kind of inventory management where our stocks are not good enough to meet the consumption requirement. So an optimum level of inventory management is essential, and it should result in procuring intelligently, smartly, so that we have the right vendor for the right material. Purchasing is planned in advance, so that we ensure materials are made available in the plant at the right time with the right cost, so that process is automated. So this is a basic emphasis of the materials management from the logistics perspective or logistic module. Now, before you go to the business functions and business processes, we have to also look into the data part, basically the organizational level data and master data that comes into picture for the module. What are the various application modules within the SAP as a part of the logistic module? Various business functions and processes that get involved in the module. SAP happens to be one of the module which basically integrates with all other logistic modules. And apart from that, it also has integration with the financial accounting and controlling. So from that perspective, as a functional consultant in SAP should adequately get the exposure about the integration part that happens between the SAP module and other modules. Then what are the overall benefits of SAP to the organization? In what way it will help the business to derive the competency in its operation? Now, as you know, in general, end of the day, you are dealing with the data in the SAP system. The data can be looked into a kind of a hierarchical structure. We have three or four important data hierarchy elements. First and foremost is the enterprise structure, what you call org data, followed by master data, transaction data, and control data. Of course, you should add here also ABAP repository, which is in fact the central most important data. That should also reflect in the slide. I think I forgot to add it, but it should be added. Basically, enterprise structure org data provides a basic framework or foundation. We essentially map the existing organization structure into SAP so that particular enterprise structure, organization structure is adequately meeting our functional requirements, legal requirements, and reporting requirements. So for running module in the system in integration with other modules, what are the various org units you need to define and how they relate with the other module units in the system that you have to understand. Next comes the master data. Org data and master data are prerequisite for recording the business process. Certain level of master data, prerequisite master data should be maintained. Then only you'll be in a position to record the business process or a transaction. As you know, master data is available in each and every module. You have certain kind of master data in each and every module. Although master data is maintained in a particular module, it is central data. Master data maintained in the form of master records will contain all the data which is shared across the application. So whenever you record any business process, the system will automatically know what is the data it has to take from the particular master data object. So data will flow automatically into transaction, thereby making sure our transactions are recorded consistently with the right data. It saves the processing time, avoids the manual data entry, and some kind of consistency in terms of recording the business process. So master data is next important data. Then day-to-day business processes which are recorded in the system, like a purchase order or a goods receipt, all these are basically related to transactions which happen in the system, and these are basically posted in the form of a transaction document and also transaction data, associated data. The control data refers to basically customization data. As a functional consultant, our job is to understand the business requirements, business process requirements, map them into SAP by doing the necessary customization or configuration. Thereby, you are adding some data in the system, which is called control data. See, all the configuration data is called control data, stored in various T tables. The control data will actually control how a master data should be created, how a business process should be recorded. So it is the heart of the SAP system. Apart from this, the central data is ABAP repository. End of the day, everything happens because of ABAP repository objects in form of tables, data, type, programs, interfaces, reports. These are all essential parts of the ABAP repository. So this gives us some kind of, a basic understanding about the data model, what we have in any SAP system, but we are going to explore them specifically with respect to SAP module. Now, from the perspective of mapping the master data and business process in SAP also possibly integrations to happen in future with other modules. Some of these units may be required to be defined mandatory. Some of them are defined in module, but most of the models are defined in the other modules. We need to have the client, the working environment. All the data is held at the client level. Basically, client-specific data like org data, master data, and business transaction data, even the control data. This is basically referring to working environment in the system, like a production client, for instance. Now, accounting modules divide into two main modules, controlling and FI. For the accounting perspective, controlling area is the highest org unit. And from FI perspective, we have the company code. Basically, company code defines the company from the accounting perspective. A company code is representing a legal entity for which it has got its own financial data. At the company code level, you have the GL accounting system and further accounting system. And all the financial reports like balance sheet, profit and loss statements are made at the company code level. Plant becomes the most important, highest org unit in the logistic perspective. As I said before, plant is a common org unit required for sales and distribution, materials management, and production. For that matter, even maintenance as a maintenance plant. Now, division is part of the logistic general. Division is very much essential if you're looking at a product that you sell to the market. Every product master that you create as a material master will be assigned to one particular division. Division will help us to derive the sales area, which is backbone of the sales and distribution. So division is defined in logistic general, but used in the sales and distribution. Sales org happens to be the highest org unit from sales and distribution perspective. Sales organization, division, and distribution channel are the three important entities which is required in recording any data in sales and distribution, whether it's the master data or business process. Basically, collectively, all of them put together becomes the sales area. Sales area is a basic framework for recording the data in sales and distribution. From perspective, we have purchase organization, which is the legal entity to purchase materials on behalf of the company. That means it is the authorized department on behalf of the company to send the purchase orders to external business partners, mainly vendors. And based on the purchase orders, the vendors will be able to supply the material. So purchase organization is the highest org unit in module, just like sales org is the highest unit in the sales and distribution. Now, inventory management, which is a core functionality of is provided through storage location. Inventory management happens on the quantity basis at the plant and the storage location. A plant can be divided into one or many storage locations. We can also have warehouse management coming to the picture, where storage location can be assigned to warehouse number, where you can maintain detailed recording of the material movement. Now, shipping point also I've added here because when you are looking at the sales and distribution integrated with the materials management, like stock transfer delivery or third-party sales, because third-party sales actually delivery will not happen from SAP, but within third party, there are two scenarios where the vendor is sending the product directly to customer, or based on the sales order, purchase requisition created, purchase order sent to the vendor. Vendor will send the product to plant. It becomes the stock item, and from there you send it to the customer. So whichever way, whenever you have the delivery process creation comes into picture, it can be even in the stock transfer scenario, we require a shipping point. So basically, shipping point is the delivery department defined in the logistics execution. So these are the very important org-units that will come to the picture. These are what we're defining during the training program. Okay. Let me go back to my earlier slide to see anything I missed out or jumped. Yeah. So we have done the SAP materials management org and master data. Now we will go to, okay, before you go to overview of SAP materials management as the classic model in SAP logistics, you need to look a little more into the relationship between the plant, purchase org, and company code. Now, plant is a part of logistic general, purchase organization is part of the SAP and company code is the highest org unit in FI. But a link gets connected between these three, depending on how you are doing the assignment in the module. Now, we have some purchasing activities which are plant specific, where we will see what is plant specific purchasing in the next slide. We also have cross plant purchasing, cross company code. That means we have more than one company code, how their purchasing will happen. Basically, we have a entity in the form of corporate group. At corporate group level purchasing activity, we also can make use of two additional purchase organizations, reference purchase organization, and the standard purchase organization. So what are these? Let's try to understand. In the first scenario, plant-specific purchasing, we have one or many plants under one company code. Each plant has its own dedicated purchase organization. That means that purchase organization will negotiate with vendors and gets involved in purchasing materials for the specific plant. That means each plant gets its material from the external suppliers through purchase process from a particular dedicated purchase organization. Now, multiple plants requirement can be fulfilled by one single purchase organization. That means one single purchase department can take care of the procurement responsibility for more than one plant. That means you're not saying one-to-one here. Many plants can get the materials purchased through one purchase org. Now, one purchase org can also get involved in the procurement for the multiple plants in different company codes. Like we have a group company where you have multiple company codes. Each company code has its own plant, but a purchase org can be assigned in such a way it can do the procurement for more than one company code. Sometimes at the corporate group level, you can have a purchase organization maintained, acting as a reference purchase organization. This will be able to negotiate and create some agreements which are valid across the companies, so that individual purchase org can refer to agreements made by the central reference purchase organization. So this way, it is going to help in terms of deriving the negotiations done by the corporate level purchase organization in terms of getting better price, better conditions for the business organization. We also have a concept and provision of standard purchase organization, which comes into picture when we are looking at a scenario where automatic purchase orders have to be created. In the automatic purchase order creation process, first system has to find out what is a purchase organization. The system will get the plant responsible for purchasing, plant which is going to get the material from the purchase requisition, and from the assignment of the plant code to the company code, it will find out the basically standard purchase organization. So basically, the plant is assigned to a standard purchase organization. So automatically purchase organization is determined, because as you know, to create a purchase order require a purchase organization. In this case, system will determine the standard purchase organization depending on the scenario. So we will see this part in the actual process when you go into the process later. So this is one important, understanding what you should have about the connection between the plant, purchase org, and company code. Now, let's go back to our previous module. Let us now get into understanding of the master data, detailed understanding of the master data. Now, basically, how can you define master data? Master data is the central data. It is a kind of, mandatory data. Unless the prerequisite master data is maintained, we cannot map a business process. For instance, I cannot create a purchase order without the vendor master and also plant in the company code. So basically, certain prerequisite org level data and master data is required to record a business process. Likewise, I cannot create a sales order without sales org, distribution channel, division, and the customer master. So likewise, every process is linked to certain organization level and master data object. Basically, master data is a data that remains in the system for a very long time. It requires seldom changes. And as and when necessary, you can also update the changes that happen. And in nature, it is a central data object. It will supply the information to various business processes. So when you enter the master data object record number in the transaction, automatically knows what data it has to fetch from the master data and get into transaction. So The org data and master data makes transaction processing easier and quicker. That's the whole idea of master data. That means, one time if you maintain master data properly, it will ensure that our business transactions are recorded properly. Now, we have a very detailed master data in SAP MM. Broadly speaking, at the outset, you can say there are two very important master data objects in MM. One is a material and as a vendor. But we have some additional master data which will make purchasing more intelligent, more automatic, more, you can say transparent. Keeping that in view, we have some additional objects also in master data. We will look into that. So broadly speaking, this is the overall list of, master data objects what you come across in SAP MM, starting with the material master data. Then we have the vendor master data, the business partner, external vendor who will supply our products and services. Service master data, where we have service object which you want to procure from the external vendor supplier. Now, batch master data is not just alone maintained in MM, because again, batch is like a cross-application component. The batch management configurations in logistic general, but it refers to the inventory basically in MM. So we have the batch master data. Now we get into some very important MM master data objects, which will aid our purchasing process more methodically, more accurately, and also transparency as far as the business is concerned. So we have purchasing info record, source list, quota arrangement, condition master data. Condition master data basically refers to price master data. Like in SAP SD, we have condition master data for sales. We have condition master data for purchasing. So basically, in terms of configuration, we use condition technique in both the modules to set up the pricing calculations to happen in the documents. Like in MM, we need pricing calculation to happen in the purchase order or maybe contract. So, let's say stock transfer purchase order. In all these scenarios, pricing is the most important basic function. We'll be covering some basic functions later on in the discussion. Message master data is something similar to output master data in SD. That means we need to communicate details of our transactions to our partners, like vendors. A purchase order output has to happen. We have to send the transaction data details into vendor. A output message will happen. So message master data also will maintain. So depending on the level of the master data, automatically system knows how to process the output. Okay, whether the particular purchase order, we have to print it or send it in the form of an EDI document. All this information will come from the message master data. Now we will try to understand little more details about each of the object, what I have listed. Now, whatever points you are highlighting in the entire presentation, you're looking at both from the customization perspective and also application perspective, because basically this training program is for the functional consultant. So not only you should know how to create different types of material master records for different requirements, but essentially what are all the areas we need to configure, various controls, so that all this master data can be created successfully and utilized in the transactions. Coming to material master data, basically, as I said before, it is a central repository for all material related data. If I know correctly, we have so many master data objects in SAP, but I must say SAP material master data is the most comprehensive master data arrangement what you can come in SAP compared to any other master data object. Like when you're dealing with creation of material master, we need to have so many screens and fields where we need to fill up the data. So from that perspective, you can say material master data is a very comprehensive object in the system. Basically, in material master data, we store the data according to department requirements, basically, which are called as views. which are called as views. Okay. So basically we have data pertaining to purchasing department, inventory department, accounting, and production and sales. For all these departments, we store the data in the material master so that, whenever recording a particular business process, data is available. Every material master will have a basic data, which is the client level data, independent of the module. For purchasing requirement, we need to maintain purchasing data, which is basically maintaining purchasing group, quantity stipulations, tolerances, inventory management data for managing stocks like plant or storage location, accounting related data. This is very important. We store a lot of data here in the accounting view, like valuation class, price control, with which, valuation can be updated during the inventory management, posting, and sales data. If the material happens to be a product, it requires some data in the form of sales data, which order can be created. So this is about the material master data. Coming to vendor master data, vendor is basically a business entity, external business partner who will supply the material or products or services to the company. Now, basically, we record the data for the vendor in the form of a vendor master record. Vendor is identified by a vendor number. From accounting perspective, the vendor number will also become a sub-ledger account. That means whenever we do the invoice verification, the payables are posted to the vendor account and vendor reconciliation account. In the vendor master data, we have three sets of data: general data, which is again client level data, and company code specific data. Just like in customer, we have company code data where it is account receivable. Here it is accounts payable. So we maintain recon account, payment terms, bank details in the company code level data, and purchasing data. Just like sales area data, we have purchasing data. These are directly linked to purchasing process. So we capture all this important data in the purchasing data level. So in nutshell, you can say vendor master data can be divided into three data groups. Then comes the service master data. Whenever you want to procure any services from the external vendor, we need to first maintain service master data. Each and every service that you procure is identified by a unique identifier for the service. Service category, a classification comes into picture. What is the unit of measurement? That means is it in hours or is it in square meters? Basically, in which particular unit the service will be billed. So basically, the basic unit of measurement. Then comes the pricing data, which includes the rate and conditions for the service. That means basically, when you create a purchase order, what is the value of the purchase order is fixed based on the pricing data. So basically, that is a part of the service master data. Now comes the batch master. Basically, what is the essence of the batch management? We deal with the inventory. In inventory, we have lots. Each lot contains certain quantity of material. This entire lot, which is purchased or produced, will be given a batch number. So all the inventory quantity for that particular lot will have the same batch number. The batch number and the batch management is very important while dealing with certain materials like in chemical industry, pharmaceutical industry. The entire lot is identified by a unique number, which is called batch number. And for that particular batch, we will have certain characteristic data in terms of shelf life or expiration date, so that all the individual material quantity, all the individual material or the quantity that belongs to that particular unit will have the same characteristic value. So these specific characteristics can be in terms of color, potency, or let's say, for example, density, or let's say expiry date. All these are defined as the characteristics. So when you are working with the batch management, you will see how to configure the batch process. Now comes to the master data objects which are directly linked with the purchasing. First, you start with the purchasing info record. Many times what happens, we have a material that you want to purchase, but we have one or many vendors. More likelihood, always in purchasing, they would like to see that, is there no monopoly as far as the vendor is concerned. Unless for some reason, only one vendor can supply that material, no other one can supply. The business will always like to have multiple vendors so that, a kind of, competency can come into picture, and also to ensure quality, requirements, we have to deal with more than one vendor. So having said, same material can be purchased from X vendor, Y vendor, Z vendor, but then we must know in terms of each vendor with relation to that particular material, what is the price, what is the delivery condition, what is the delivery date, any other quantity stipulations. So this becomes very important from the purchasing perspective. That means if there are multiple vendors available, or even for that matter, single vendor for that material, we can maintain a joint record of master data connecting one material with the specific vendor. So one material, 3 vendors will lead to 3 info records. The info record, when maintained, it becomes a highest level master data because it is connecting both material and the vendor. So again, the purchasing info record will have general data, conditions, pricing data, order units, delivery data. So all this data will be automatically influencing our purchase order processing. So when you're creating purchase order, lots of this data can be moved into purchase order automatically. So purchasing info record is most important. Now comes the source list. Now basically when you want to purchase, purchasing is a decision-making process. Suppose a particular department wants to prepare a purchase requisition. That means they want to purchase this material for their business requirement. But then what are the sources available for this supply? If we maintain the source list, then either they will be coming to know what is the source assigned to the material, or they can also select their own sources for the particular material. Source list will basically help in streamlining the procurement processes, indicating which vendor to source a material from. So basically, a material can have a source list maintained, saying that in a particular period of time, which vendors can supply this material, and the source list will become very important decision-making object. So when you want to purchase, sometimes you can purchase via source list. Then you can also come to know what are the relative merits of each and every vendor, and then pricing comparison can be done, and you can select the appropriate vendor for purchasing the article or the material. So source list also one of the important master data. Now, when you are dealing with the multiple vendors, naturally vendors will expect to have fair share of the business from the company. Suppose we have for a particular material 4 vendors or 3 vendors. Naturally, when you are certified these vendors as the approved vendors, they would look forward to have the business relationship in terms of getting the orders. That means they are active vendors and will be taking interest to provide the materials on ongoing basis. But then business will see from their perspective how to load the quantity among these vendors, and that's where the quota arrangement will come into picture. So basically, whenever you are procuring, how to update the quota based on the quota rating, how to assign that particular quantity to particular vendor. So based on the quota arrangement, you'll come to know this particular purchase order quantity will be purchased from vendor V1. Maybe next purchase order it will go to V2, maybe V3. This decision will happen automatically in the background based on the quota arrangement. So a quota rating will be there, something like 3:2:1 or 2:2:1. So we ensure that we are loading all the vendors in a way they get some amount of share of business from the company. That's the basic idea of having the quota arrangement. Condition master data happens to be pricing master data. Basically, when you say conditions, they are referred to the day-to-day pricing parameters. Day-to-day pricing parameters means whenever you want to purchase, you must know what is the basic price at which you want to purchase, any discounts are possible from the vendor, what are the freight charges. All this data is required when you create a purchase order. So we configure condition technique like in sales and distribution. When you create a purchase order, a pricing procedure or schema will be determined. This will make the pricing calculation to happen automatically for each and every item in the purchase order. So basically, we maintain various configuration controls in the form of condition type, access sequence. Condition records are, of course, maintained by the business users using the condition type and the access sequence and table. So when the system, we create a purchase order or any document in system will automatically search for the appropriate condition record and use the data in the purchase order processing. So condition master data will ensure automatic pricing. That is the basic aim of the condition master data.